continue here and look who's back. Oh my gosh. Lineups and chill over here. Paul
What up?
Spore. Paul, I gotta give a
Costume
massive
change.
thanks to you. This is your third time you're showing up here at PitchCon, which is I needed somebody to help jump in here as we had a late person drop out. Thank you so much for coming to host once
You're
again.
quite welcome. Happy to do it.
All right, we have Sarah Sanchez and Dylan Drummy as well. Sarah, Dylan, thanks for being here. It's great to see you guys.
Great to see you too.
Absolutely. I'm excited.
Yeah, last time I saw you, Sarah, I was lamenting about Game 6 of the World Series. So I'm on a happier note to see you today.
Oh man, that was an exciting game, and I was thrilled to be able to watch it with such illustrious company.
Oh boy, Zach Wheeler getting pulled in the 7th will haunt me forever. Anyway, I thank you all so much for being a part of this. I'm gonna let you guys take it over.
All right, thank you so much, Nick. Well, Sarah, Dylan, nice to meet you, by the way. Sarah, good to see you. We're gonna be talking about one thing each team needs. It says like one move every team needs to make, but let's be honest, the waiver pool or the free agent pool is pretty much dried up. Not a lot of trades going to happen. We're not going to predict a bunch of trades that won't happen. We're just going to talk about things that need to happen to have their seasons be successful. Now, not everyone can make the playoffs. Some of these teams are bad. They would need 50 things to happen to make the playoffs. But you want to have development. You want to move forward. And Sarah did a great job here breaking up the teams, and we're going to use her headers here. And we're going to start with the rich get richer. Do they really need anything? Every team can get better, but this seems excessive. I totally agree with your tagline there, Sarah. So let's start with you and Atlanta. That's the top team there. Coming off a World Series win 2 years ago, another strong season last year. They're loaded for bear. They lock up all their young players. They did lose their big-time shortstop. Maybe that's a move. But what do you think that the Braves could use right now?
Yeah, I had maybe a shortstop as one of my bullet points here. But honestly, the place where I see the Braves needing some impact is at left field. I think that if you look at some of the projections and you look at where the Braves are headed. I mean, Dan Zambrowski over at Fangraphs does his awesome Zips work every single year. And the Braves are pretty much loaded for bear, right? Like they added a Sean Murphy, like they did a bunch of stuff. The pitching staff is fire. They've got Raciel Iglesias closing for them. I'm not as worried about shortstops. I think Von Grisham's going to be okay. But that left field situation is not great.
It's a little dicey.
I cannot imagine Marcell Ozuna is going to get a ton of run there. And so I think a corner outfield bat really would make a team that is already elite even better. And given the division and the fact that the next team we're going to talk about is going to be breathing down the Braves' neck, I think they could stand to upgrade at left field.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Eddie Rosario penciled in right now per roster resource. Sam Hilliard and Jordan Luplow on the reserve team right now, or on the bench rather. So that is somewhere where they could definitely upgrade it because it's not their strongest suit. Marcell Ozuna penciled in at DH. You don't want him in the field at all. Dylan, do you agree on left field there for Atlanta?
Yeah.
Or do you see anything else?
Yeah, I think that's about it. Their starters are all set. I mean, I personally have Strider as my projected NL Cy Young, so I feel like they're really set there. So it's, a left field bat wouldn't hurt.
I think so too. I think we'll say that one. I'm not as gung-ho on Grisham yet. However, I do think Orlando Arcia could fill in capably. And there's such a deep team that even if the left field and the shortstop come up a bit shy for them, you're still talking about 7 very strong positions, a wonderful pitching staff, a wonderful bullpen. The Braves are going to be a tremendous ball club. Let's move over to the Mets, team that you hinted at a moment ago there, Sarah. They tried to make some moves. They made one huge move that everyone thought was going to stick. It fell through, the Carlos Correa move. What do they need?
You coming to me or you going to Dylan? You take this one.
Yeah, you know what? I'll bounce back and forth. Let's go to Dylan first on New York here. We'll kind of do a snake draft type of thing.
Absolutely. That's
or back and forth, rather.
I mean, New York, so let's start off. They're a really good team. With Carlos Correa's thing, the Giants obviously saw something. I know they went to the same doctor. I know it's up in the air, but I feel like they may have made the right move. That's a long-term commitment, and I generally don't like those long contracts like that. I don't really think anybody who's into sabermetrics really loves those contracts, honestly. But we have here Francisco Alvarez being ready as catcher. I entirely agree. I think they're pretty weak there. I mean, I think they've kind of dabbled with a couple of people. It's not McCann, is it? No,
McCann got traded, and so they've made some pickups. They picked up Omar Narvaez.
Yeah.
And so then they got they still have Thomas Nido, who's a holdover there. So they got Narvaez, Nido, and then Alvarez is kind of that question mark who could really take over the position. But is he ready to do that?
And I think at this point where they're trying to get with the team, I feel like it might be smart to get his. I mean, it's worth getting a service time clock. It's starting to get his, some experience to where he'll come in his sophomore, junior year in the majors, and he'll be honestly ready when the Mets can truly make a push because they're making. I mean, they're aiming for a World Series within the next 2 to 3 years. Of their time thing. So I think moving Alvarez up now makes a lot of sense. Whether he's mentally ready for that, we don't really know, but I think it wouldn't be a bad move, and I think it is just a matter of time at this point.
Yeah, and I think Narvaez, he kind of learned how to catch in Milwaukee a bit. It cost him some hitting at that first year, but I think he was really focused on becoming an actual catcher. So as long as you're having a guy that can kind of do the defensive piece, the depth of their offense, they can give something back there. So if he can hold it for a little while Alvarez gets his feet wet, maybe plays some DH, that might be something where he passes the baton to more of a 60-40 for Alvarez as the summer comes along. What do you think, Sarah?
Yeah, I totally agree on Francisco Alvarez. Catcher has been a problem spot for the Mets for a while now. I also think that they could stand to upgrade at third base, but they've got a couple of intriguing minor league guys who might be ready this year in Batty. I'm not exactly into Batty. Thank you. And Mark Vientos. So who they would not trade to the Cubs for Wilson Contreras. And I'm still a little salty about it. But I think that third base is a place they could upgrade a little bit. I worry a tiny bit about Starling Marte's health in right field. But I think the Mets are mostly fine, and I think Alvarez is ready. I think he's going to hit.
Yeah, I think so too. And again, another team that is so deep that if they do have a spot or two that isn't exactly awesome, they can probably afford it. But I do agree with you on that Starling Marte health. He gets hit by the ball a lot too. Like that is part of his game, is to be on top of the plate, similar to one of your former boys over there in Chicago, Anthony Rizzo. It's like a part of their game, but it does add to your risk. Let's stick with you, Sarah, and stick with New York. What do they need? I loved your answer here, so I totally agree with this one. Unless Dylan put this one, but whatever we have here on the sheet, this is the one I totally agree with. Go ahead.
I mean, I think I put this one. The only thing that New York, the Yankees need on the other side of town is they need one of these shortstops to rise to the occasion. They cannot keep running Isaiah Kiner-Falefa out as their starting shortstop. Like, I get it. I have him on like a draft and hold at the moment, but I think I took him in like the 40th round or something.
Yeah, he's
right?
dirt cheap.
You cannot be the New York Yankees winning the American League East with Isaiah Kiner-Falefa as your starting shortstop. So I think that they need Volpe or Peraza to really step up and claim that job and make it theirs. Outside of that, man, this Yankees team is stacked. They have such good starting pitching. I loved the Carlos Rodon pickup. I think he's going to do. I don't think he's going to have any problem in the bright lights of Yankee Stadium. I liked the Harrison Bader pickup last year. I'm glad he's no longer in the NL Central tormenting the Cubs. And I honestly think Clay Holmes is going to be great in that closer role. So I think the Yankees have quite the crew of guys to make a deep run. In 2023, they just need one of these shortstops to claim that job.
Yeah, it's a good ball club. Shortstop is a need. They got Peraza, Volpe, two guys who could really pop for them. I'm eager to see how it goes. This one isn't necessarily a need, but I'd really love to see Oswaldo Cabrera also pop off as like a super util because he can play infield and outfield. I know Josh Donaldson's defense is still good enough to hold the position. I'm not sure his bat is, though. So I wonder if Oswaldo Cabrera can get in there a bit more. Dylan, anything else for the Yankees that you see, or do you agree on the shortstop situation?
Agree on the shortstop. I think it wouldn't hurt if they didn't have the obligation of Josh Donaldson, but I mean, that's not a great guy to have in the middle of your lineup, and especially for how much
or in your clubhouse.
Yeah. I mean, the obligation of him, but other than that, I think shortstop that pretty much covers it.
Yeah, heck of a crew, and even a regressed Aaron Judge is going to be just fine. Like even if he doesn't hit 62 again. All right, Dylan, let's stick with you. Let's go to Houston, another premier contender. What do they need to do?
Well, I put on the list, bring James Click back. that was one of my
such a weird move, right?
Nothing against their new GM. James Click is just I've read so much about him, and a lot of people. I mean, he started with Baseball Prospectus and stuff like that, and he did some great stuff with them, and he was really good at taking over after Lunlow and really just helping continue that Astros dynasty. So him moving on, especially after a World Series, was a bit strange at me. Now, they have offensive upgraded catcher is the other note we have here. Right now they have Martin Maldonado projected on Fangraphs. And I mean, Maldonado's not a great hitter at all.
No. He's
I mean,
pure
I think,
defense.
yeah, he's pure defense. So I think an upgrade there wouldn't hurt. But other than that, I mean, teams pitching wise, they're solid. Reliever wise, they're always solid. They always have one of the best offensive lineups in the game. So I mean, even if they don't get a catcher, they're still going to be a good hitting team. I'm just curious as to how the direction of the organization changes without James Click.
I agree. And again, very bizarre move. You don't usually see that. Yainer Diaz and Corey Lee are two prospect catchers, one of whom could rise to the occasion and maybe get a bigger share of that job. Maldonado has the defense on lock. So that certainly is nice. And they have the lineup that they can afford that. But maybe they get more of a dual threat guy with Lee or Diaz possibly popping off this year. Sarah, anything else you see with the Astros, or do you agree with the catcher and maybe bringing James Click back? Of course, they're not going to, but did you find that bizarre too?
I thought it was totally random. Like, it's such a weird time to lose your job. But my understanding is I think he made some demands and they were like, nah, we think we've got all the people in house to take care of this and that. You showed him the door. And it's just kind of like, that's bananas to me. But also, like, Houston does things a little bit differently and it's worked out for them. So, Yeah,
you think after you win a World Series, you can make a push for something, right? Like, I'm going to go in there.
I'd like a raise.
Something.
Inflation is real.
I'd like an hour and a half lunch. Yeah, no, James, that's probably going to be a no. In fact, you're fired. Wait, what? No. I'll take an hour lunch. 45 minutes. No, get out.
So weird.
Yeah, very, very bizarre. All right, let's move on to our last premier contender here under the rich get richer, San Diego Padres. They've done a lot of good things, but I kind of see what you're saying here with the left field situation. Why don't you expound on that for us, Sarah, with San Diego?
Yeah, I mean, I love what the Padres have done. And I like it from the perspective of the Padres are in to win. They are a mid-market team. They are one of the smallest markets in baseball, and they do not care. They are spending money. They are trading for Juan Soto. They are extending their guys. They're doing all of the things that you should do if you want to be a team that can take the NL West away from the Dodgers. And they've got Matt Carpenter penciled in at roster resource as their starting left fielder. And I'm like,
in fairness, it's temporary, right? Because Tatis will come back, and I do think he's going to pretty much play outfield. But right now, it is 37-year-old Matt Carpenter in left field.
That's just real yikes for me. I mean, what is the Tatis start date we're looking at here? Is it May?
4/20. So hopefully he doesn't get too blazed when he comes back. We know his decision making is just not the strongest part of his game. So
it's the only weak part of his game, honestly.
It really is. Yeah, the literal only flaw.
Yeah, I just thought it was kind of, coming back on 420 with, Fernando Tatis, getting in trouble for drugs earlier.
We just never know what he's going to do. But yeah, that should clear it up. But obviously that's still 3 weeks that they're going to have Carpenter out there. And of course he's 37 now. He's had some injuries. I know they want to run that Cruz Carpenter platoon at DH. Hopefully they keep him healthy until then, because their backup outfielders, Jose Azocar and Adam Engel, aren't exactly great. So they might be playing Carpenter a lot, and they could put him at risk for the rest of the year. So that wouldn't be something that would break the team. Let's not overstate it here. Again, we're talking rich get richer. So these are small ancillary moves for the club. Once Tatis comes back, that team is just absolutely loaded to the hilt. I don't know which one of you put that about Hader, though. Who was that, you, Sarah, or Dylan?
It was me. And I worry a little bit about Josh Hader. We kind of saw him lose it at the end of last season, and he lost it in a way that closers sometimes do. And there is a thought in the back of my mind that Josh Hader might just not be the same elite guy that he was with the Brewers for all those years. And that was why the Brewers were willing to deal him. I do think that the Padres have depth here. I think that Morejon's a really interesting pitcher, and there's some other guys who could step into that role, but it is worth keeping an eye on that closer situation.
I think it is too. They have to be hardened by the strong September that he finished with. He did kind of look like he was getting back to being quote unquote Josh Hader. But, with closers, especially guys that throw this hard, it can be gone in an instant. And I think we've seen it, the blueprint that you would kind of look at as for how this would go the wrong way would be Chapman. And when guys that throw, 99, 100 consistently, they go down to, say, 96, 97, we think, well, 96, 97 is still good. Yeah, but when your success is predicated on 98 to 100, going down to 96, 97 is actually a big deal, especially if you can't counterbalance it by throwing more sliders or developing a changeup or something like that. So it is worth watching with Hader. He did have a good finish, but I also like Robert Suarez, and in draft champions leagues, I've been taking a few shares of him just in case. just in case. Anything else for San Diego before we move on to our next group, Dylan?
I think I want to elaborate on Hader a little bit. I mean,
Okay.
I feel like people don't realize that, like, you know, he really did have a horrible ending just as far as what he used to be. I mean, you look at some of this stuff like Alex Chamberlain's pitch leaderboard. I'm not sure if anybody here is familiar with that.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a beautiful chart, but like I'm looking at it right now, and he it only goes to a 9.4, but he had a 4.66 PCRA going into that. And that's not great because his DERA was only a little was higher. So, I mean, he got a teensy bit unlucky, but like not that much, right? Like what you saw basically was what you got. And I think that's something that we fans really need to worry about because Hader used to be almost unhittable and he's not anymore. He's just, I mean, he had a good K percentage, but guys are making really good contact off of him. And that's something he used to be able to avoid. And it's not anymore, and that's kind of unfortunate for San Diego, but at least Milwaukee now has Devin Williams, who
and he's ready to go too.
Yeah.
I made the obvious comp of lefty to lefty with Chapman, but I think Kimbrel would be another avenue that you could look at to see how this starts to break down, where he was invincible one day, aka the 2017 season, then started to show some issues in 2018, and then Sarah, plug your ears, when he got to the Cubs, it was meltdown city. He did rebound in 2021, but then back last year, sketchy again. Now, some people might notice that we did not have the Dodgers in that top group. I think that was right by Sarah because that second half of their lineup right now is not quite Dodgers. The way Justin and I were talking about it on the pod, he said they used to be the Avengers, and now they're just like a pretty strong group. Like they don't run 1 to 9 the way they used to. So I agree with them kind of being in the second group here. Extra credit moves. These teams are already very, very good, but could push. Dylan, let's start with you with the Dodgers. What do you see as something that they need to have happen for everything to go right for them?
Well, first, I just want to say you're absolutely right. They're not the team that they used to be. They've lost a lot of big names, specifically Tree Turner, who, in my opinion, was one of the best Dodgers of them all. So you got that out there, and then you got Kershaw, who is not who he used to be. Or I mean,
yeah, absolutely. He's a 1120 inning guy these days, right?
Yeah,
That's all you can really bank on.
You can't expect him to go a full year healthy. I mean, honestly, like just with how his arm is now, and you don't expect him to win another, Cy Young like Justin Verlander just did at his age. Or I mean, I'm pretty sure Verlander's actually older.
Verlander's substantially older. Kershaw
is only 35. 33.9 is what it says. So
which is not crazy. Like you're not super young, but I think we think of him like Kershaw and Scherzer, but like Verlander and Scherzer, and Kershaw's a couple years younger than them.
Yeah, so I mean, you're not looking for a big thing. I mean, left field comes to mind of something that they could really use. I mean, right now, Fangraphs has projected James Outman, who I mean, I've rarely heard of. So it's something along those lines that could be useful. But I mean, that second half of the lineup is really, sketchy. Once it gets to like Trace Thompson, Chris Taylor, James Outman, I'm not confident in that. And I mean, they could use somebody they have Rojas on the bench, but I think the pitching's somewhat fine. I'm expecting some definite regression from Gonsolin, but other than that, I mean, I just think that they need some better bats in the bottom half of that lineup.
They really do, and that's not something that we've been saying in recent years. Sarah, do you want to expound on anything else? I think there's another guy here that you might have wrote on here that I agree with. They need him to step up, but it's a question mark. What do you think about the Dodgers?
Yeah, I'm going to come to that guy in 1 second because I actually do have some concerns about the Dodgers pitching, but not for the reason people think. Their defense up the middle took a huge hit. They went from having like Seager and Turner to having Turner and Gavin Lux and Cody Bellinger out in the outfield. And their defense in the middle right now is just not that. And the shift rules are going to change what the Dodgers are able to do considerably. I think it was Justin Choi who wrote the piece over at Fangraphs originally looking at how the Dodgers did a much better job at how they positioned their fielders than just about anybody else. And that they take away a ton of hits by lowering people's BABIP. They can't play that card anymore. They've gone from Cody Bellinger to Trace Thompson, who's not a plus defender in center. They're like splitting time at second and short between Chris Taylor, Max Muncy, Gavin Lux. I don't like it. Like, I don't like it at all. I really don't like it with the new shift rules. The other guy that I'm super interested in on this Dodgers team, I think Miguel Vargas needs to step up. He's going to get a shot. He's going to get a shot to play in a lot of different positions. And this is his time, right? If he's a prospect who can stick with this Dodgers team, he has every opportunity here while the Dodgers take kind of a step back from elite and try to reset the cap. But So I'm really interested in Vargas, but I'm also a bit worried about Dodgers pitching just because of the defense situation.
That's a fantastic call, and they really have been great at keeping these BABIPs low. Dylan mentioned Tony Gonsolin. Julio Urias always fails the projections because of how good his BABIP is. They always have it regressing. This might finally be that year with that defense. They always have enough talent to kind of do whatever they want, but right now they haven't shown that they're interested in making a big trade. So right now they've got guys like, I think Dylan pointed out, Trace Thompson, Chris Taylor, and James Outman are their bottom three. I'm a Tigers fan. I would punch a puppy for those three to be our middle three guys, but the Dodgers as their bottom three, that's brutal. That's brutal. Let's shift over to Philly. Let's stick with you, Sarah. The Nick's killing me for wanting to punch a puppy. I didn't say I would. I didn't say I am. I said I would to get those guys. They just made a World Series. Heartbreaking to lose to the Houston Astros, but obviously things are going well for them. They figured out a way to make their defense not hurt so much, but maybe they still have to fix it a little bit more than they have here. Although the Brandon Marsh move was pretty nice. Sarah, what do you like for Philly to do to kind of secure that and maybe make another return trip to the World Series?
I just want to be very clear as a Cubs fan, we will also be looking up at the Dodgers. So with me criticizing the Dodgers is not like faith in the team that I cheer for. It's more just like, these are not the Dodgers that you've seen the last 5 years.
Precisely.
The Phillies are interesting to me. I really think they're another team where I'm like, y'all need some defense. This left field defense situation with Nick Castellanos scares me. It scares me a lot. I don't, or right field, sorry. I don't like it at all. Kyle Schwarber in left is not that much better. I love Kyle Schwarber. He's one of my favorite players. That's not good times right there. I really also think they need Baum to step up. I think that Alec Baum needs to have a big year, right? Like he's got that job at third base, and I'm curious to see what he can do with it. But he needs to hit another level for this Phillies team to be able to take advantage of the moves that they've made. And I love what the Phillies have done. They've done the same thing that the Padres have done, right? They are all in. They're spending money. It's a Dave Dombrowski team. He has decided he is going to buy a championship for that city, and I'm here for it. But you can't buy a championship without defense from key positions. The last thing that I will say is that the Phillies, to me, appear to have taken a throw all of the relievers in the bullpen and one of them will be able to close approach. And I'm not really seeing it. Like we were just talking about Craig Kimbrell, man. He's not really a guy that I am pinning my hopes on for 20 saves. I mean, Anthony Dominguez is an interesting arm.
I like him, but I mentioned I'm a Tigers fan. Gregory Soto. Have fun, Phillies fans. Have fun with that one. I don't know that that's going to work. So they are going with the four guys. They got two righties, two lefties. Sir Anthony Dominguez, Kimbrel from the right side, Alvarado, Soto from the left side there. They're hoping somebody can rise up and be the dude or play mix and match. Rob Thompson right now has said it's going to be mix and match. But there's some sketchiness with all those dudes. I like Sir Anthony Dominguez the most. I think you made some good points. There was a video out about how it's on YouTube. I don't have the creator of it. I apologize. But how they did do some defensive positioning to try to play to Castellanos' strengths. And that's why we saw so many of those sliding catches to his left. However, that does not mean that I don't still share concerns about two lumbering dudes out there putting so much pressure on Brandon Marsh to cover the alleys big time. And so that part is still a bit scary with their defense. They did get Trey, though. Excellent move. And they also, like you said, Bohm to step up to cover the fact that Harper's going to miss half the season.
Yes.
So, right, that there's going to be some offensive gap there. Maybe Nick Castellanos can rediscover his power to cover that as well. Dylan, anything else for Philly?
I absolutely agree about Castellanos. He needs to rediscover. They paid him big bucks. They expect things. I mean, as somebody who watched a crap ton of Reds games when he was a Reds outfielder, you would see him make all these diving catches and then realize that he has no range whatsoever. It's really embarrassing.
Standard plays for most guys, and he's out there diving for them, which puts him at extra risk too, right?
Exactly,
so it's like it's good that he makes the play, but if he busts a wrist doing it, wasn't worth it.
I love the Noah Wheeler punch, but other than that, I mean, I just think that it's a Dave Dombrowski team, like you guys were saying. I'm not a huge fan of that buy high, spend big, but I mean, it worked for him last year a little bit. Hopefully it'll return again, but I'm not sold on it. I like Soto. I know he's a little shaky. I know you're not a huge fan of him, but their bullpen's a toss-up. I
Makes
mean,
me take a lot of these.
I was going to say, I like Dave Dombrowski's approach when the Red Sox won in 2018.
Yeah, okay. When it didn't work for the Tigers, but it works for every other team he's on. Great, guys. Let's move on to the next team.
Yeah. Sorry,
Tampa
Sora.
Bay. Tampa Bay, Dylan. We know they're always doing good things, mixing and matching, playing on that shoestring budget. What do they need to do to maximize? Because they haven't quite gotten over the hump in the playoffs yet. What can they do to be a true contender?
Well, so I'm going to start there. It's always hard to get over that hump in the playoffs, just from especially with how they approach baseball, from needing sample size.
Yes,
players need sample size. They just signed Yandy Diaz to a 3-year, $24 million right today. I think I love Yandy Diaz
and Fairbanks recently. Two signings.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're still making good signings. They're making a lot of that. We got health for Shane McClanahan and Tyler Glasnow listed. I think that is absolutely necessary. Shane McClanahan is one of the best pitchers in baseball, and Glasnow, when healthy, can be. I feel like when he's healthy. So I mean, they need health. Health is a big thing for them. They've gotten the injury bug a bit. Their lineup is always decent. They always manage to scrounge around players, but to be honest, I feel like it never really does them justice before the season, because it always feels like they know us so much more than us.
Yeah, as a bunch of no names like Wander and Rosarena, those are guys, but then the rest of the team is like, who?
Like I can try to say like, okay, I know who they need this team, but to be honest, there's admitted ignorance. I'm pretty confident that the Rays front office, though, and what they have, they'll be able to pull something together, and they're going to be they're always going to be competitive.
I agree with that. Sarah, anything that you see that's glaring for them other than what Dylan's highlighted with the Rays?
No, I think Dylan covered it.
He did a great job there. So let's stick with you and move on to Toronto, another team that's trying to get over that hump, become a contender. They have an uphill battle in the AL East. That's just such a bear of a division, especially now that the O's are starting to open up their window a bit. At least the Red Sox have chilled out, so not all 5 teams are killing it. But what does Toronto need to see happen for them to really make that push, get into October, and do something?
Can I just say I love this Blue Jays team? So like when it was very clear that the Cubs were just totally out, and like I had to go looking around for who my playoff rooting interests were going to be, my first team that I adopted was the Blue Jays, because I love them. They mash, they score a ton of runs, they're fun. They have that jacket that's like their home run jacket, and it's great. Alek Manoah is like a genuinely great human being who stood up for Alejandro Kirk when he was getting blasted for not looking like an athlete or whatever. I love this team. I love everything about this team. And the one move that would push this team over the top, in my opinion, because remember, they got to contend with the Yankees. They got to contend with that Rays team we were just talking about. They need Jose Barrios to return to form.
Yes,
they traded for Jose Barrios for him to be their stalwart number 2, number 3 guy who puts up close to 200 innings every 5th day and can just go out and pitch. And he was not that guy last year. No. Last year, he was much more of a question mark. I had him in a couple of fantasy leagues, and it was quite the wild ride. So
how terrifying was it to start him? You never knew what you were getting. And then I'm sure that you benched some of his gems too, because he was so up and down that you take 3 beatings in a row. You're like, well, I'm going to sit him here, even though because he's going into the Yankee Stadium, and then he'll drop 7 scoreless. Okay, well, I'm going to bring him back now because he's facing the Tigers. 5 earned in 2 innings. Like, it was tough with Barrios last year.
Yeah, it was totally unpredictable. I think that if he rebounds, they're actually in really good shape. They could use another starting pitcher, though, as well. They don't have quite the depth in their rotation that the other teams in this division do.
Yeah, because Hyun-Jin Ryu is going to be a late return. You can't really count on him for anything. I like Mitch White. I'm kind of wish casting him. I just don't think he's got it as a starter, particularly because he just doesn't have a good fastball. Dylan, anything?
Kikuchi is your 5th. I was just going to say, Kikuchi is your 5th starter is just like, you want that guy to be like your number 6, number 7 guy doing some like perfect middle relief.
Yeah, if he was a swing man, that'd be a lot better. But here we go again. He'll be throwing 98 in spring, and the fantasy dweebs will get back in on the Kikuchi train only to get hurt. I say we as the general we. I will not. I learned my lesson the first 3 times that I bought into Kikuchi. Dylan, anything else with the Jays before we move on to the Cards?
You know, they say 4th time's a charm. Well,
yeah, that's a classic phrase.
Yeah, I mean, they signed Bassett, so I mean that should add a little bit. I'm not really like. I thought Guerrero was going to have an MVP like season last year, and he just didn't. To that,
he came back a little bit, but he could storm back up again though too.
Yeah. I mean, he can. I feel like he can do a lot better. Basically, it's what I think he's capable of. Still young, still nervous. I mean, I think this team. I mean, they just need to be successful in the playoffs longer. Barrios coming back, but Sarah mostly covered it.
How sweet would it be to have your off season be a 132 WRC plus, which is what Vlad put up last year? What a stud. Let's move over to the Cardinals. I think they have a pretty clear need here, but let's start with you, Dylan. What do you think about this Cardinals squad?
Well, yeah, I mean, we got here addressed on the list, starting pitcher depth, and that is very much necessary. When Fangraphs has your SP1 listed as 41-year-old Adam Wainwright, something can't be right. I thought he should have retired. As somebody he came to Cincinnati a lot. I got to see him in person a lot, and he is so bad. Like you can look at any numbers. I don't know why he's still in the league. Honestly,
it's that curveball. It still succeeds, but he has a 7% swinging strike rate. You know how much the defense has to protect him, and will the shift hurt him? I don't know. By the way, I haven't researched this, but does he get a lot of shifts that are going to have to change now and allow even more than the 9.0 hits
now? I mean,
yeah,
he's
so much contact,
so he has to. So I mean, he's got to play. I mean, you usually don't see him go above 90 anymore nowadays, which is just kind of weird. But I mean, yeah, they have no depth. I mean, you don't know what you're going to get with Matz or Flaherty if he can stay healthy. Flaherty has shown good potential if he's healthy, but
he could be a G, but we just don't know about the health. Sarah, what do you think about the? Yeah, what do we think about the Cards, Sarah?
I think the Cardinals now employ my favorite baseball player of all time in Wilson Contreras, and that is just devastating for me personally. It is my villain origin story, and so at some point in the future when we're all trying to suss that out, that's what it is. He's literally right behind me.
Mark this for us, Nick.
No, seriously, the one thing I'm curious about with the pitching in particular, the Cardinals have managed to overperform that pitching because they have very good defense behind them. They have a great park. They also had Yadi Molina behind the plate. And Wilson Contreras is not exactly known for his handling of a pitching staff. It will be very curious to me to see if a guy like Wainwright, a guy like Michaelis, if they can continue to overperform the way that they have with Contreras behind the plate rather than Molina. Now, I want to say a couple of things about that. I think the concerns about Wilson Contreras' defense are way overblown. I think that I've looked at the numbers like 16 different ways, and yes, I know he's had some bad years. He's also had some okay years. Yeah. But it'll be interesting to see if the Cardinals have some sort of system or fix that moves him into the next level there, because we know the bat plays. We know that he's going to hit second on a team that has Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt on it. That's going to be totally wild and crazy to watch. The Cardinals can put up some runs and they can do some damage if that starting pitching holds and their new catcher can get the same thing out of those pitchers that Yadi was able to for so long.
And maybe Yadi, I'm sure he'll be around the team. Maybe he's a consultant of some sort in spring. Maybe he's got some tips for Contreras. Or like you said, maybe some of that Cardinal way, the whole book thing that they have, has some things that can make him. I know Molina, he was born into it, right? They had like 42 catchers in their family. So if he learned anything from them, it was probably ancillary. He just foundationally understands how to be a catcher, but maybe he can pass some of that along to Contreras and make him even better. Let's move over to Seattle. And let's talk about what they might need. I forget who am I starting with here. Is it you again, Sarah? I think so.
Yeah, I think it's me. I will say from one family of catchers to another with the Contreras brothers.
That's right.
Over there, sort of fun.
Both switching teams this year too.
Yeah, right. So I love this Mariners team. They were actually my second playoff team after they knocked out my temporary beloved Blue Jays. The thing that I am worried about for the Seattle Mariners is pitching. And it's just one of these situations where I like Logan Gilbert. I like Robbie Ray. I like Luis Castillo. I don't know how I feel towards the end of this. Like, yes, George Kirby could have another big year. Marco Gonzalez is okay as your number 5. Chris Flexen's okay. I don't love it. Like, I think that they need.
Gonzalez has a 5, and then if he isn't doing well, what do you got? Flexing?
It's not ideal. They need another arm, and I don't know where they're going to get it. I don't know if they're going to try to let Brash start again. I don't know if they're going to go to some of their young talent there and see what they can do. I just feel like this team is one arm short right now, and they're in a division where I don't feel like they can chase down the Astros, right? So they're looking for a wild card again, and I don't love that for them. I do love the bats in this lineup, but I think Julio Rodriguez is a stud.
Absolute monster. Maybe Emerson Hancock, somebody to watch. He was at AA this year for 98 innings, so he should be in AAA if they let him graduate. If not, he should be up there relatively soon. maybe he could be the guy, but they do lack depth. So if one of the big four gets hurt, and I'm including Robbie Ray in there just because he is markedly better than Marco Gonzalez, chat, don't get mad at me. So Castillo, Gilbert, Kirby, Ray, if one of those big four gets hurt, I do worry about them taking a hit, dropping down to flex in, or like a waiver pickup, or some rando from the minors that we don't know. But there's a lot to like with this club, and I do think that they have a chance to stick around. Anything else with Seattle before we move on to Minnesota, Dylan?
I think Castillo's due for some regression just from
no, don't say that. I love him.
No. I'm a big Castillo fan, but I think he's probably going to face some regression going in. Their lineup is, nothing super special. I think they did really well with Suarez the last other year. I mean, they've been up and down. J-Rod, it depends on what he can do in that full season sample of that. I still think he's going to be a stud, but
yeah,
you want to see it. You want to see what he can do. Bottom of their lineup's a little rough. Jared Kalenic is just, Jared Kalenic. I mean, that's the best way to put it.
That swing and miss.
Mighty have fallen.
Yeah, that swing and miss is just so damaging. And I keep telling Justin, who wants to believe in him, I said, there is no history for somebody to really completely flip that kind of swing and miss. You just usually cap your potential output there. So I absolutely worry about Jared Kelenic. And TPH Noob in the chat says lefty Joe Adell, and that is a perfect comp. Let's move on to go ahead, Dylan. No, go ahead.
Jurickson Profar was somebody who's a free agent who I looked at.
That could be a nice fit.
Yeah, that would be. He's projected over one more from what I could see. He's projected at what's he at? 1.2.
And he can play anywhere too, or not anywhere, but infield and outfield.
Yeah, lots of flexibility there.
That's actually a great call. I think that'd be a really nice signing for them. They got AJ Pollock, who when he plays, he's good, but he's not going to play a full season at 35. It'd be really surprising. So yeah, that's actually a strong pickup. I kind of want my Tigers to pick him up just because he'd be a full-time starter for us though. All right. Where the wild cards are. Again, you did great with these headers here, Sarah. Let's start with Minnesota. And Dylan, obviously they won the Correa sweepstakes, if you want to call it that. But what do they need to really jump to the next level in Minnesota?
Depends on your definition of winning.
Exactly.
I mean, it varies a little bit. I don't know if I'd call getting Carlos Correa for that much money a win, but hey, man, he came back home, right? He wanted to go there all along. Yeah, he didn't sign 2 other contracts beforehand. But I mean, I want to see how Joey Gallo does. That's been the most interesting thing that I love to see. I would love to see him pop off. I'd love to see him just go up there, no shift now, see what he can do. I've written about that for Pitcher List a little bit and, talked about what Joey Gallo could possibly do, what his splits have looked like, and how he's adjusted over his career to the shift and how he's gotten a bit worse. So having no shift, not having that adjustment, seeing how he can do. They've got a lot of young guys that just, need to show out. They need to prove that they can be there.
Jose Miranda, time to be bit. You're going to have your stage set for him to be good. Alex Kirilloff, maybe you can get a wrist transplant or something. I don't know. Nick Gordon, Royce Lewis will be back later in the season, coming back from the, I believe, ACL. And I like him a lot, but obviously with the injuries, it's been a bit nerve-wracking there. Anything else from Minnesota, Sarah?
I mean, the one thing I will say is they really need Byron Buxton to have a full, healthy season. Byron Buxton is a huge difference maker for this team, and he cannot stay on the field. And so I'm hoping that he'll be able to get a lot more at bats at DH and maybe play like 120, 130 games, because I think 120 or 130 games of Byron Buxton is something that I am very interested in, and it would push this Minnesota team up to compete with the Guardians. Without that, they look a lot like they looked last year, adding Christian Vasquez at catcher instead of Gary Sanchez. And that wasn't enough. And we know that wasn't enough, right? So really hoping for some healthy season from Buxton. I also think they are going to miss Arias. I think that's a bat that they have not really replaced in their lineup. It's real hard to replace a guy who hits 300.
And he does something so unique for them with all that contact, keeping the ball in play. And like even I know like the idea of like productive outs, like moving the guys along, we kind of scoff at a bit. I get that. I think that's more if you're talking about that for somebody who hits 210 and you're saying, but he gets a lot of productive outs. No, this guy hits 310. And when he makes outs, he's putting the ball in play, moving guys along and things like that. So he was a good fit for that team because they have a lot of boppers. Like he and Gallo as like a combo is really interesting. I root for Gallo, but obviously I know the stats, so I know it's not very good. I do like the Michael A. Taylor move as a means of keeping Buxton healthy, because you don't need to push Buxton in the outfield as much because you're still getting premier outfield defense from Michael A. Taylor. So I thought that was a really, really savvy move by them.
Totally
All right,
agree.
let's move on and go to Cleveland. You mentioned them, Sarah, so we will stick with you and talk about them. You say here how they always punch above their weight. Can they keep doing it? They're a pitching factory. What do they need to go right this year?
They are a pitching factory, and I like watching the Guardians. I love any team managed by Tito Francona. I think that he is incredible. It's interesting to me, the Guardians do not get offense from their outfield the way other teams do. Other teams get a lot of home runs from their outfield. The Guardians get a lot of contact from their outfield. It's a team that's offense is built very differently than other teams. They've got Miles Straw out there. They've got Stephen Kwan out there. These are not dudes that are hitting you 30 home runs, right?
Like 6 combined.
These are not those guys, but Miles Straw is super speedy and Stephen Kwan's going to hit 300. And so it's a really interesting build to me. I think that they need to continue to punch above their weight. Whatever they're doing in Cleveland works. They are always a very sound fundamental team. I do think they could use a little bit more power in this lineup.
I agree. And maybe that comes in the form of Oscar Gonzalez, although as Justin and I highlighted on our second outfield preview, he has some alarming numbers that could lead to a boatload of strikeouts. So be careful if you're expecting too much from Oscar Gonzalez. Anything else that you see, Dylan, for Cleveland?
Not specifically. You just have, you got to count on their pitching to do good. They're usually a good pitching machine. I'm curious what Shane Bieber does this year. I love Biebs. Yeah, they've got to anchor him. He wasn't exactly in Cy Young form as he was a little bit, but he's doing better. I'm just curious. It's going to be interesting. The Guardians always surprise me, so I'm a bit hesitant to say anything. But they always seem to be bigger than some of their parts somehow.
Agreed. I think Sarah nailed that when they talk about how they punch above their weight. Pitching helps that, right? If you outperform pitching, it can cover some of that offensive deficiency that they've had. And so we'll see what they're able to do this year. Let's stick with you, Dylan. Go to Milwaukee and talk about what they could do.
Well, I put on my list Christian Yelich to return to his 2018 form.
Please. I love Christian Yelich.
Everybody would love that. I don't think anybody would not want that to happen. They've got a rough outfield. It's with how Yelich has been playing, at least a couple of parts. Garrett Mitchell and Tyrone Taylor, I'm not really super high on. So, getting another outfielder wouldn't hurt. Their pitching's, pretty set. Corbin Burns is, Corbin Burns is usually going to be that anchor that's usually good. Brandon Woodruff will produce. I like the Miley signing. He's older.
I like getting Miley back. Yeah.
At the back end of the rotation, it's a good signing. I feel like they have Devin Williams, obviously, and hopefully, Aaron Ashby was one of the guys who I really liked, who was really good. Just sabermetric stud, I think would be the best way to put it, because he had a lot of underlying metrics that were great, and to see him actually produce would be interesting. But yeah, they just need a lot of guys, especially their offense, just to return to how they were, to get back to form.
And if the rotation holds up, Ashby could be a really key fireman for them, doing 2-3 inning stints if they don't have to put him into the rotation, because the bullpen is a little thin beyond Devin Williams and a little bit of Matt Bush being okay. It's a little bit of no-name, but they have shown a penchant for kind of developing no-name relievers too. So I kind of trust Milwaukee in a way that I trust Cleveland too. Sarah, what do you think on this Brewers ball club? Because they're looking to try to do something this year after coming up a bit short last year when I kept thinking they'd get over the hump, and they just never did. They had a decent 86 wins team.
Only things I want to add, I love the Jesse Winker addition. I think that Winker really got hurt by going to Seattle. That was a terrible part for him. And Winker back in the NL Central, I think, is going to rake. So Winker is on my radar. And I actually thought that the Brewers did better in the Murphy trade than Oakland did.
Oh my God, yes.
I love William Contreras. That bat kills in this lineup. And I find it sort of humorous that Victor Caratini is backing up a Contreras brother again.
They're like, we'll facilitate this trade and we get William Contreras. Okay, yes. Say yes, hang up the phone. Don't let Oakland back out of this. I don't know why they didn't just get William Contreras. I don't know.
I don't either.
Absolutely insane. Very, very funny over there. All right, next group. So you're saying there's a chance. Now keep an eye on the clock. I think we'll do back and forth for this group, but then the last two groups, it'll be each of you just gets to talk about the team and then we move on just so we can hit time. But both of you still get to talk about these two. Let's start with your Cubs, Sarah. And of course, I'm going to start with you. what do the Cubbies need to have a big season? Because I like some of the moves y'all have made. I like the lineup. It's starting to look a little bit better. But why have they massacred my boy Matt Mervis?
I'm real furious about the Mervis stuff. I was just talking about this on my podcast with my co-host Danny Rocket. The Cubs need the Cardinals to collapse. They have not made any moves this season that catch them up to the St. Louis Cardinals. The Cardinals got better. The Cubs got slightly better. I like the moves they made too. I just think they're missing a premier move. Like the Cubs don't have a capital G guy. They have a bunch of guys who are fine and better than the guys they had before, but they do not have the guy. And they lost the guy in Wilson Contreras, and they just didn't really replace him. Dansby Swanson is an excellent baseball player, and he is better when there are 3 other guys on his team who are better than him.
I agree with that.
He is not a good guy to be like the person you build your entire situation around.
At least as far as offensively, I will say, as a shortstop, I think in a clubhouse he can kind of be the dude. But I totally get your point. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's like, is Seiya Suzuki your guy? Is Trey Mancini your guy? None of these are guys.
Yeah,
in the way
these
you
are
need them
solid B guys, not the A guy that you're talking about. Yep.
So I think the Cubs are hoping the Cardinals will collapse and they can just sneak in to win the division. I think they know that they're not in wild card contention because the wild card is going to come out of the West or the East. I will say Matt Mervis is going to get a shot to win that job outright. I don't think the Cubs will have any compunction about sending Eric Hosmer and his minor leagues or his major league minimum salary to the waiver wire if they need to. So and Matt Mervis, I've heard him in a couple of interviews now. That dude has a chip on his shoulder about not getting drafted in a way that kind of reminds me of how Wilson Contreras was like, I'm never going back to AAA. And Wilson Contreras was the most improbable dude to start multiple All-Star games at catcher. And yet here we are. I think Mervis has that same chip on his shoulder. I think he's going to get a shot. The Cubs have just created contingency plans upon contingency plans that are not particularly exciting around him. The last thing I'll say, I think Christopher Morel should get a real shot at winning that third base job outright. The raw tools with Morel are so impressive.
They're there.
He has one of the strongest arms in the game. He has a barrel rate that's in the 91st percentile, and his sprint speed is in the 88th percentile. The kid can play if he can figure out how to stop striking out on breaking and off-speed stuff. And he's only 23. So let's give him some time to figure that out. He came straight from AA to the majors. I think Christopher Morel could be a stud.
I love the talent. He reminds me a bit of he doesn't play center as much as Carlos Gomez did, but he reminds me a little bit of Carlos Gomez with the raw tools. He's tooled to the hilt. Just don't strike out that much. You can strike out 27, 26% of the time. 32, I can't tolerate that. Dylan, anything else on the Cubs before we take you across town to the White Sox?
I'll keep it brief. Cody Bellinger. I mean, I'm just excited to see what he does. I mean,
me too.
I don't
root
know
for
what
him.
he's gonna do. I'm gonna root for him. I think it'll be interesting. I have no clue. He could absolutely suck, or he could turn into an MVP. I don't think the MVP part is likely, but I want to see it.
But it's not out of the question, right? He's still young enough to get all the way back. All right, let's take it to the White Sox and start with you, Dylan. What do they need to do? They did one good thing. They got Tony La Russa the heck out of there. What else do they need?
Yeah, Tony La Russa out is just such a good move.
That move was so dumb from Jump Street.
Not a fan. Not a fan. I mean, they have a decent team. I want to say they have a decent team. I love Dylan Cease. That name not related. But I think she's
That's
a really
not how relations work, Dylan. You know that, right? You do know that, right?
I think no, I was just talking about my affinity for him. It's not actually because of the name, but it doesn't hurt, right?
Yeah, I'll root. Yeah. I like Goldie because he's awesome, but him being named Paul definitely helps. So I follow you on that.
Exactly. Yeah. So Dylan Cease, I mean, I like him. I like their 1-2 with Lynn too. I mean, they have a decent pitching. Mike Clevenger's up in the air, obviously, with that whole shebang that's happening right now.
Horrendous.
Yeah, it's
I hate him.
Yeah.
But anyway, continue.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've got a good team. I could definitely see them possibly making a wild card. I don't see them winning that division. I think it's more than likely the Guardians take that more than anything. But I don't want to rule it out. I like their bullpen, but there's nothing super specific, I would say. I mean, other than the back of their lineup's not great, but I mean they're just they're what you would expect for where they're at and where they're projected to be. There's nothing there's not going to overperform. I don't see them being a breakout. I just see them, being middle of the run with some high wild card upside.
I think they could be a breakout if what Sarah's I think she's going to say comes to fruition. Sarah, what do you think about the White Sox before we move on?
Yeah, I just want to echo what y'all were saying about Clevenger. Like, the White Sox need to do some due diligence. Like, don't hire Tony La Russa. Don't bring on Mike Clevenger. Like, y'all need to clean house and not bring in terrible people. If they get a healthy season out of Eloy Jimenez and Luis Robert, this team is fire. Those two players have so much talent. It's out of control. We haven't seen it, right? Like, they've not been able to put that all together. Those two combined with Oscar Colas, we could see, like, I am here for that. I want to watch it. Please, for the love of God, keep that superstar talented outfield / DH spot healthy. And by the way, maybe go sign a second baseman, because, like, I'm looking, I hate the second base situation so much. On the Zips projections I was talking about earlier that Dan Zambrowski does, he's got this slashed as Gonzalez / Sosa / Sanchez / no Garcia, please. That's where the White Sox are at second base. Just go sign Elvis Andrus or something, please.
They should just bring him back. Romy Gonzalez, Michelle wasn't available. There's a reference for old people. Let's go out to Anaheim.
Post-its.
There, I knew you'd get it. Thank you. Let's go out to Anaheim. I won't say LA. I don't want LA people to cry about it. Let's talk about the Angels, and we do have to pick up the pace. So I'm actually going to start the one for each of you here. So Sarah, you're going to get the Angels. Dylan, prepare for the Giants. Go ahead.
Awesome. I mean, I think it's real simple for the Angels. They need Anthony Rendon to be healthy. He has not lived up to the contract that he signed so far. If he is healthy, he's a huge difference maker for them. They need Brandon Drury to repeat what he just did last season. I think it's possible. He's always had the talent. He's just never been able to stay healthy to put it all together. And what even is this shortstop situation? They also need Elvis Andrus. Like,
yes,
this shortstop situation is terrible.
Fighting. Those two teams, White Sox and Angels, should be fighting for Elvis Andrus' service. Over to the Giants now. Dylan, what do you think of this old crotchety team with their terrible defense?
I think, a lot of it depends on what are they going to do with Arson Judge. I had to lead with that. Logan Webb, I love, one of my favorite pitchers out there in the game. I think he had a good 2022. I think he can do better in 2023. We'll see, though. Obviously, they're pitching friendly more of. I mean, obviously that's what you would expect from a team like this. I like their pitchers. I really like their rotation. You got Camilo Duvall, who I'm also a huge fan of. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of it just depends on, do these guys that, that nobody really expects a lot from, are they going to break out? Are they going to at least produce a lot? They have Jock now, which is kind of nice. And, you got to see that, and with him in a Giants uniform, I think that'll be good. As far as, I mean, nothing ultra specific, just more of, I think they've got a good rotation on their hands. They're not going to win the West. Sorry.
Not unless that offense pops off again and gets back to 2
years I think
ago.
It could happen. I think it could. They could defy their Pythagorean wins like they did that one year.
Exactly. It'll be off the pitching if it is, though. We do have to keep going, though. So let's move to the kids. Are all right. Yeah. Sarah, you get Arizona. Dylan, prepare for Baltimore. Go ahead with Arizona here. The baby snakes are kind of intriguing to me. So what do you think?
I love the baby snakes, and they would be so much more interesting as a playoff team if they could just move to the NL Central, where they would have a shot to, like, actually win the division. But behind the Dodgers and the Padres, this Diamondbacks team is not there yet. And it sucks because Jake McCarthy is cool and Corbin Carroll is cool. And I kind of like the Varsho Lourdes Gurriel trade swap thing that they got going on there. They definitely need more pitching. They need starters and bullpen arms. And I'm choking. So I'm going to, I'm going to pause.
Okay, I'll pick it up there. I agree with you, though. Zach Gallen's awesome. Merrill Kelly's solid, but then Bumgarner, Davies, I don't know. Ryan Nelson and Dre Jameson are both intriguing, too. If they both step up and put less pressure on Bumgarner and Davies, then I think they can be pretty good. But I agree, being stuck in the NL West is very difficult. At least they don't have to play the NL West teams as much. Baltimore for you, Dylan. Keep going.
Yeah, like Sarah wrote on here, kids to perform. She is absolutely right. I mean, they've got their whole team is just so young. I mean, they need these guys. They only have one person right now that's projected to be in their lineup that's above 30 with Adam Frazier.
That's a 9-hitter too.
Exactly, right? So, I mean, they need these kids to perform. I'm really interested to see what Adley Rutschman does. He's projected really high this year. I think he can. Their pitching is, horrible. But
it was good last year and because of that park, right? And so they did leverage their new park. I know getting Cole Irvin doesn't give anybody the warm and fuzzies, but if they outperform again because of their park, that could be interesting. We do have to keep going, though. KC for Sarah, how's the throat? You good?
Yeah, I'm good. Okay. I apologize. I really
no problem at all.
So here's the thing. They might need to be in the next group, but they have some young talent, and I'm intrigued by it, and I'm interested. I think Vinny Pasquantino is really interesting. I think Bobby Witt Jr. is really interesting. The problem for Kansas City is that they don't have pitching really at all. Their starting pitching is not intriguing to me. And Dan describes their DH situation as, quote, the 4 dudes who can hit. And I feel that deep in my soul, and that sort of sums up the Royals to me.
Okay, I think that's fair. All right, I'm going to challenge y'all. We have 8 teams left in 4 minutes. You get a sentence on them. So it's going to start with Dylan in Miami and then go either or back and forth. So Dylan, Miami, 1 sentence.
Sandy Alcantara keeps being good.
There you go. Sarah, Washington.
The Nationals have no chance in this division, but give them a few years.
Okay. Dylan, Pittsburgh.
They figure out their ownership conundrum and maybe start actually buying.
I like that. Sarah, you have a very big challenge here. Colorado.
Believe in yourself as much as the Montforts believe that the Rockies are okay and will play 500 baseball.
Yes. Dylan, Oakland.
I only need 2 words here. Las Vegas.
There you go. Sarah, Cincinnati.
Man, their ownership is terrible. They have some intriguing talent. I think they're still probably 2 or 3 years away, but Hunter Green is a live arm. So is Nick Lodolo. And I'm curious to see what Ellie De La Cruz and Noelvi Marte can do with a shot at the big leagues.
Perfect. Dylan, Boston.
I'm really interested to see what Yoshida does. He has the second highest F4 projection on the team. Chris Sale needs to be healthy. They need health. They need health, and they need to figure out what they're doing because I'm trying to figure out Chaim Bloom's moves, and I really cannot. I don't know what he's doing.
And Sarah, finish it off with Detroit. Please be nice to me.
Well, here's the thing. I think that Detroit should call Boston and trade Javier Baez to Boston because the Red Sox need a shortstop really badly. And I cannot imagine a worse situation and circumstance for Javier Baez to do his magic El Mago thing than Detroit. So I think you trade Javi to the Red Sox, let him thrive in Boston for a few years. Yeah, okay. get an arm, get some talent back, whatever. And then build up. They've got some young guys. They've got Riley Green. They've got some Spencer Torkelson. They've got some dudes I'm interested in, but Baez is the wrong fit there. Get him out and get what you can back. And the Red Sox should expect a call because, frankly, that's the move. That's the move I want to see as a Red Sox fan and a Javi fan, frankly.
That would be really interesting. I'm still gonna be rooting for Javi. Obviously, we're probably not going to trade him, but that would be really intriguing if 1 year later we trade him. He jumps over to Boston where they need a shortstop and then pops off again because when he's cooking on a good team, it's one of the best things to watch in baseball. Nick's gonna be creeping around the corner somewhere here. I got that extra minute back if Todd wants it because it's 5:59 right now. Y'all did brilliant. Very, very well done. Thank y'all so much. This was a lot of fun. Oh, there he is.
Hi. So I'm preparing for my panel at 9 o'clock, which is 100 pitchers in 50 minutes. And I was writing now. I have some fun ways of doing it. And I realized the question for your Tigers here. Who is going to be the best Detroit Tiger pitcher this year?
Okay, so I still have a pretty soft spot for Matt Manning. The answer is Eduardo, though.
But is it?
It is, but
yes.
I'm actually going to give 3 guys then because I'm going to say also don't sleep on Turnbull coming back from TJ.
Yeah, right.
He got the 18-month recovery. So I don't think he's going to have as many hiccups coming back. I really love Spencer Turnbull. So if I'm ranking him, I'm probably going to go Erod, Turnbull, Manning. But I still love Manning.
Correct answer was Matthew Boyd. Sarah and Dylan, who is the best pitcher on the Athletics now that Cole Irvin is gone?
Wait. He wasn't the best pitcher
before. I'm just saying that he was the clear ace. If you
didn't ask me anyway. I'm sorry.
I'm torn between Paul Blackburn, who overperforms his expectations because he pitches in that park, and AJ Puck, who I keep waiting for him to be like the reliever who could,
sure.
And he hasn't yet. But I'm not done holding out hope for AJ Puck.
I'm with you. The correct answer is Ken Waldachuk, though.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dylan. I trumped you. I'm so sorry. I should have
Ken Waldachuk. See him pop out. Waldachuk is going to come out, pop out. We're going to see what he does.
Baby.
He's going to show up, and he's going to keep the team from moving to Las Vegas.
I knew I liked you, Dylan.
I'm actually really excited. I disagree with all of you. So tune in at 9 o'clock for me to tell me for you to listen to who I think is actually.
Okay. It's not going to be JP Sears.
I don't know.
No,
Is
it's
it?
not. It's not. Because I already know
What,
you,
you're
and
not
I
into the
know it's
Sears
not.
catalog? All right,
No,
get
I
out of here.
actually like
No,
Sears, but I know that I'm
I'm
like
just
too
joking. I'm
high
just
on
joking.
him.
You know, I
Anyway,
hate Sears.
exactly.
Spore, thanks so much for being, 3 times here. Sarah
Happy to
Sanchez,
help.
wonderful to see you. Dylan Drummy, you did a great job. Wonderful to see all of you. Thank you so much for participating in PitchCon.
All right. Good luck at 9, Nick. Bye.
Take care, guys.